Good evening, this is Erabon. We are delighted to be with you again this evening, and delighted in the progress that's being made with the communication between us and you as a channel. And this will only continue to improve as time goes on. And it is also beneficial that you've been maintaining a relatively consistent schedule on a daily basis, and indeed, as you've surmised, continuing this for more than 21 days, perhaps a 40 or even 60-day period, a cycle, if you will. This will allow things to come full circle and produce a very beneficial effect, consistency of vibration, of rhythm, of maintaining a rhythm is an important part of psychic and spiritual undertakings, underpinning many factors of mental function, believe it or not. For there are many activities which will be greatly enhanced by maintaining such a schedule of the relaxed state of mind, the relaxed state of concentration, if you will, from the inner game ideas, and doing this at a regular time on a daily basis with no gaps has an almost magic effect, if you will, similar to 2 or 3 people being joined together and meditating on a similar idea, or joined together in open prayer or worship or those kinds of things where the minds are synchronized in intent and desire and activity, and also in this state of relaxed concentration. It can be a very powerful thing, and so in a way, due to the cyclic nature of reality and the fact that cycles are being set up, you are in a way doing this with yourself. It's kind of like looping with a looped recording where you can come back around again and again and start to sing harmonies with yourself. This is in a way what's happening when you establish a rhythm. And the 21 to 45 day cycle, somewhere thereabouts, surrounding approximately 30 days, this is approximately a rhythm involved with this type of thing, with meditation and psychic practice, and especially involving communication between entities and things. And so here, where we're attempting to synchronize across realms, across the veil, with you on the other side, so to speak, from our perspective, it is a very important and beneficial thing, and something that inevitably happens over time if someone is doing the channeling on a daily basis. For even if there are gaps here or there, eventually you'll get stretches where you are doing this. And yes, to a certain extent, it's not the end of the world, but if you miss a day here or there or something. But the consistency is important, and absolute consistency adds another dimension to the efficacy, to how helpful such a practice is. So we've come to you again today, in part to discuss channeling and psychic awareness, such as this, and would like to briefly touch upon the PRE table as you've been focusing with other individuals. This is a beneficial undertaking. This is something that may not appear, from your perspective, to be that important at this moment. Something perhaps important and useful, but not imminently becoming something significant in the eyes of others, if you will. And this may indeed be closer than you think, and this is indeed a good time to be thinking about improvements to the design, refining the design, getting a consistent design, a pattern, if you will, for a functional table built with relatively inexpensive, commonly available parts that can be assembled by others all over the globe and or halfway easily shipped, constructed at one location and shipped to another. And indeed, it would behoove you, and there will be a time, inevitably, regardless of who is involved, when a true manufacturer, one that is already involved in the manufacture and distribution of waterbeds for existence, for example, or furniture of different types involving woodworking and construction, shipping of larger pieces of furniture. This type of person or entity or organization will become involved, and then things will really take off. With just a small amount of effort in the areas of marketing and sales and distribution and whatnot. A relatively stable, small market for a device of this kind is within the foreseeable future, perhaps 10 years or so. It could become a regular thing that's humming right along, and definitely a full-time endeavor for a number of individuals. So this is something that's worthwhile to look into. The benefits that you are receiving are definitely happening. They are real. It may not be immediately obvious. We understand that you often get the impression that not that much is happening, that it's doing good and doing some good, but simply nothing is tangible. But indeed, you are right in your supposition that a large part of this is the fact that you have maintained a relatively consistent schedule using the table once or twice per week and kept this up, and that has had some effects in stabilizing your condition. The human condition is normally, for most individuals in your culture in this day and age, the human condition is in a state of decline. And this decline is seen by most as kind of a norm. And yet, really, the norm perceived by people is what they are experiencing. Whatever they are experiencing at a given age, barring major health issues that they know would have caused this or that, they associate their condition with that particular age, and that is just what a 30-year-old or 40-year-old or 50 or 60-year-old feels like. Well, what's happening with you is that your condition has relatively stabilized to perhaps, let's say, that of a 25-year-old in many respects as a result of using the table. But there's been a relatively smooth transition into that. And because you were relatively young to begin with, it wasn't that drastic of a difference from where you were before. It's just that you're feeling more healthy more often, more consistently, and that has become your norm. So when you've reached a plateau, if you will, of improvement, where a kind of a homeostasis has been achieved biologically, physically, then it may seem like in a given session not really much improvement occurred as a result of doing this or that. But of course, as you surmise, the real improvement is that you put in your time, so to speak, to maintain that status quo and keep the deleterious aspects at bay. So this primarily, fundamentally, as far as physical health is concerned, this is probably the most pervasive and valuable aspect of using the table. And that is basically eliminating some key bottlenecks that contribute to your premature aging you experience, such as tension of various sorts and even crystallizations and things forming that block blood flow, that also, and concomitantly with that, block energy flow. And however you look at it, the vital life force to cells, organs, and tissues gets blocked off more and more and more over time. Well, that aspect is alleviated by the regular use of the table. Perhaps ideally 3 times a week, for example, 2 or 3 times a week, maybe. And that's a tremendous benefit. It truly has the power, even though it's not optimally functioning, even though there are still some wrinkles to be smoothed out, so to speak, it has the power to largely do that, to get you there. And that is something incredibly valuable. Even if you're not able to achieve these states of profound relaxation for great lengths of time, due to perhaps frequencies of the music jumping out and being distracting and things, or whatever, just also the mental practices is to a large degree involved in profound relaxation and hypnotic suggestion. And on your part, there just hasn't been the great attempt to achieve that lately. And yes, greater benefits can be achieved in that regard, but even so, simply lying down and using the table, no matter what you're thinking about, as long as the music is something that a person is kind of in their comfort zone, and it's not too wild and crazy or having really dramatic, punchy drum hits that are jerky and cause kind of a twitching distraction as physically. Just a wide range, relatively, of kind of smooth flowing, easygoing music, whatever is seems appealing to the individual, as long as they're experiencing that and laying down on the table, regardless of their mental state, it produces some dramatically improved physical effects along these lines of getting to that plateau of homeostasis and kind of ideal health, to allow the human existence to unfold according to its normal biological clock, being, as indicated in the cultural readings, along the lines of 10 times the age the entity entered puberty. They entered puberty at 14, let's say, then 140 years could be seen as the approximate life expectancy, barring the stress and deleterious aspects that your culture, or simply the bicameral mind, it's a byproduct really of where humanity is at right now, that becomes a large factor in shortening their lifespan. These factors that produce tension restrict the flow of life force to various portions of the body, and it starts to fall apart like a house of cards. So, a rather resilient house of cards, but a house of cards nonetheless. So, we would like to encourage you to maintain your regular use of the table, but to also have an eye to improving the design and refining and getting a regular design kind of established with a parts list that you can post online and have, like, if not necessarily blueprints, although these would be nice, to have at least a list of parts and some general pictures and things indicating the method of construction and the final form or the form at various stages of construction. And also, we would encourage you to pursue the practice of profound relaxation on the table. You have selected several types of music that have been beneficial in this regard, and have been fairly good at selecting the songs within those albums that are distracting and kind of pull you out of that relaxed state. And we would encourage you to do this some more and get one or two or three programs of music, playlists, if you will, that are a good playlist for like 20 minutes, say, or 30 minutes. Perhaps like a 30-minute session with kind of an introduction and then something uplifting that brings you out at the end with a 20-minute core in between that's the profound relaxation state. And then perhaps a longer version for an hour-long session or something. And perhaps even longer than that, or something people could do indefinitely to play all night, for instance. But we would encourage you to pursue profound relaxation as practice on the table, and also then refine the playlists and the program material you're using, whether it's your own or off the shelf, or simply do what's practical and what's readily available at hand without too much wasted time and effort, and then begin to try those and practice those and get a few playlists that work and make those available online. If it's not necessarily legal, if it contains copyrighted material, then of course you can simply indicate the exact contents of the playlist so that others can purchase it themselves, or there are other avenues before you, or possibilities for sharing that type of music, and of course you have the ability then to make your own, which will in the medium term to the long term, slightly longer than what we're talking now. We're talking perhaps the next 6 months, a year or so, and perhaps in 3 to 5 years you'll have established a number of pieces of your own sound recordings of like perhaps 30-minute, hour-long or more lengths that are completely your own. So therefore, you can freely post online and or also perhaps sell sound recordings if people so desire and things like that. So we would just like to reiterate that it is important and it's valuable, and people are coming to a point where they are seeking more and more interest, momentum and interest in the table is gathering, and now is the time, so to speak, or a time when the enough creative mental energy is being exerted that this will come into being, and what you can do at this point, since you are kind of early on in the game, you can facilitate this process, be a catalyst, if you will, to since you're at this point, and since the thought forms have been more readily established surrounding you, for instance, one way to look at it, you are positioned to help this flow of energy bring this into being. Certainly it's going to happen even if you get hit by a bus tomorrow and fall off the face of the earth or whatever. It would still, it has momentum, it's coming about, it would still occur. But to encourage you from simply being apathetic or dropping the whole thing, let other people take up the ball, since you are interested, and since this is something you're positioned to help out in, it could be greatly beneficial to many for you to jump in and do so at this time, as much as is convenient for you. So, also then, other topics, another topic we wanted to touch on, aside from the table, was the practice of meditation. The inner light consciousness meditation, which you've done, the Paul Solomon method, is quite beneficial. And you've dabbled in this somewhat, established a routine a few years back where you were doing it for about a month. And we would encourage you to find a time, perhaps involving the table, perhaps not. As you found, things get kind of complicated when you're doing the research into profound relaxation and things on the table, and also trying to keep up a steady rhythm of maintaining the meditation. So perhaps at this point we would encourage you to have the inner light consciousness meditation be a separate time when you put in the time to do that more conventionally, just sitting in a chair or whatever posture seems the most appropriate. And this will have some beneficial results in tandem with the channeling and with the table. And indeed, as you've surmised, you could establish a schedule where you do the inner light consciousness meditation to go up the terraces, and at the top of the mountain in the temple, this is where you could perhaps step out of the temple onto the clouds which surround the mountain, and as you've done many times before, walk out onto the clouds and into the area where we come from. This is the exact vibration, the exact area where in the Oren and Dobbin meditation for developing channeling, you met entities such as ourselves, kind of the meeting place where individuals on your plane are desiring to get in contact with individuals on the higher planes, and it was kind of a meeting ground, but a very important one for you to visualize, because it was a visualization of a higher vibration. Definitely had the feel of an elevated state, and this was very important. And also you've seen the parallel between that and the elevated state the inner light consciousness meditation is designed to take you to. And we would possibly encourage this. This could be, if done regularly and put into your practice, your schedule, your routine, as a prelude to the channeling, this could be quite significant for it's impossible to exactly predict what will happen, for indeed, as you understand, this is kind of a trial and error process on synergistically on all of our parts, where we try different things until we settle into a groove that works for communicating through you. And that practice that we're talking about, the groove will change, that the whole dynamic will definitely change in a more stable direction. And that will provide the opportunity for many other facets to this type of channeling, for will open the door for other types of connection and practices that was not necessarily open before. So this would be something to try, and definitely the thing to keep the eye on is whether it becomes too laborious or too tedious or too much to do, to where you start to feel like giving up altogether again, and dropping the whole thing for a while, that would be the time to definitely back off and come back to more of what you're doing now, which is sufficient to a large degree, where you just sit down and relax for a few minutes, and with the correct, appropriate visualization, and we make a connection. That's definitely working, doable, and improving. So by no means is it necessary for you to integrate the inner light consciousness meditation. But regardless of whether there is that integration, we would greatly like to encourage you to include that somewhere in your routine, in your daily practice, again, for we find, and we know you will find, that it will turn out to be something practical and valuable, even though it can be frustrating, as you found, when it seems like, as with other things, you reach kind of a plateau and you don't seem to be getting many results. So we would simply encourage you to get into that groove again of using something like that, and go from there. So these are the things we wanted to touch on with this evening's session. And we would encourage you to try to get more precise, perhaps with the exact time you start the channeling, but also realize that that also is a groove, determined largely by the vibe of your schedule and how your daily routine just naturally unfolds for a number of reasons, and that's something that will establish itself, so to speak. So just with an eye to coalescing on a more precise time, understand that it will naturally happen. Perhaps 9:30 or so will be the target time instead of 9 o'clock as you at first envisioned. But this is good. It is by no means a showstopper, so to speak, if you slip and it's suddenly 9:45 or almost 10 o'clock or something. Still, the connection is, as you know, definitely attainable any time of day. The important thing here is to get that rhythm going so that it becomes a strong, tight 21 to 45 day cycle, and you'll find a new groove gets established, if we would put it that way. So with that, we think that's sufficient for the present, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to communicate through you, and are very encouraged, as well as you are. We can sense that the clarity of communication is dramatically improving. Definitely different every night at this point, as should be expected, since you're getting back into the groove of things. But this is definitely encouraging, and we would like to leave you with that and express our gratitude. Thank you, listeners, for providing your energy in a reciprocal fashion in your act of listening, and we would like to thank you, the channel, also, and offer you our positive energy and blessing, if you will. Until next time, we are through for now.